Rain pounded against the windows of Sunnybrook Diner, turning the streets of Madison Heights into slick rivers of light. Inside, Ryan Thompson wiped down the last table, hard hammering as he noticed her for the first time. A woman in a sharp black suit, sitting alone, untouched wine and cold coffee before her, watching everything with a piercing gaze. She didn't belong here, yet she stayed, silent and deliberate, like she had a reason only she knew. Ryan had no idea that by the end of this night, one folded note under a plate would change the course of his life and the future of his little daughter forever. The rain came down in relentless sheets, turning the streets of Madison Heights into glistening rivers of light. Inside Sunnybrook Diner, Ryan Thompson wiped down the last table of his evening shift, the fluorescent lights flickering overhead as if unsure whether to stay on. The smell of coffee and grease clung to the air, mingling with the faint perfume of the late-night patrons who had long since disappeared into the storm. He had been working here for 5 years, night after night, watching strangers pass through his life, sharing fragments of their stories, and leaving the weight of their burdens on his shoulders, even when he had little to spare himself. He noticed her immediately, the woman in the corner booth. Dressed in a black tailored suit that screamed wealth, her hair pulled back perfectly, her leather handbag pristine even from across the room. She had sat there for over an hour, sipping slowly from a coffee cup that had long gone cold, barely touching the slice of apple pie beside her. She didn't read, didn't scroll through her phone, didn't talk. She just watched. The way she observed the diner made Ryan's skin prickle. She didn't belong here. That much was obvious, yet she stayed anyway, like she had a reason no one else could see. Ryan refilled a coffee pot for the third time that night, his movements automatic. He knew the regulars, the tired truck driver at the counter, the nursing student hunched over textbooks in booth 3, counting her coins with trembling hands, the construction workers too exhausted to talk. He smiled, nodded, said the right words, listened to the stories he had already heard a dozen times. Kindness was all he could give, and somehow it mattered more than money. The diner was emptying out, leaving a thin mist of steam and the occasional clink of silverware. When he finally approached the woman's table, coffee pot in hand, he hesitated. "Can I warm this up for you, ma'am?" he asked, trying to sound casual. Her eyes lifted, dark and sharp, assessing him in a way that felt like a test. She said nothing, just nodded slightly and returned her gaze to the untouched pie. He set the pot down, awkward but careful. There was something about her that made the air between them feel charged, like a quiet storm. At the counter, Joe, the trucker, laughed too loudly at his own story, and Ryan caught his eye, signaling the usual balance between listening and light teasing. Booth 3 held Chloe, Ryan's daughter's age somewhere in his memory, but in this booth, it was Maya, the nursing student, pale-faced and nervous as she counted her coins. She was short $1, embarrassed. Without a word, Ryan crossed out the total on her check and wrote 0. He whispered, "You can pay it forward someday." She looked up, startled, tears threatening to spill. He smiled, turned, and walked away before she could argue. The storm outside pounded against the windows, each drop a sharp reminder of the world pressing in. Ryan's thoughts drifted to home, to Chloe, curled up in the small apartment 2 blocks away, waiting for him to finish this endless cycle of nights and shifts. He called her once, and the small voice on the other end made his chest ache with longing. "Daddy, when are you coming home?" she asked sleepily. "Not until late, baby, but I'll see you tomorrow morning," he lied softly. He always lied to protect her from the weight of his fatigue, the crushing worry over bills, rent, and school tuition that had climbed again this week. When he returned to the table after checking on Maya and the remaining few stragglers, he noticed something new, a crisp white envelope tucked under the woman's plate. It was folded once, perfectly, with precise handwriting. He picked it up, feeling a pulse of curiosity and caution. Inside, a single sheet of paper and a business card read, "I need to see you. This is not charity. Come to Lane Industries tomorrow at 10 a.m. Ask for Victoria Lane. Do not ignore this." His hands shook slightly, though he could not say why. A billionaire rarely noticed waiters, let alone left them instructions. Ryan's life had not prepared him for this moment. He was 34, shoulders slumped from years of work that paid just enough to survive. He had once written software downtown, a decent salary and benefits, a future he understood. But that had ended the day Anna had died. The car crash had stolen more than a life. It had stolen certainty, leaving only Chloe, wide-eyed and innocent, to anchor him in a world that seemed suddenly wet and unforgiving. He ran through scenarios as he locked up the diner, checking the envelope repeatedly. Could this be a scam? A prank? Rich people rarely extended their attention this far down the ladder without strings attached. And yet, the thought of Chloe's tuition, the rent due, the overdue electricity bills, he could not ignore it. If there was even a 1% chance this could help his daughter, could he really walk away? The storm had slowed to a drizzle as he walked the 2 blocks home. Chloe's nightlight flickered softly against the wall. He peeked into her room, watching her chest rise and fall with slow, steady breaths. His heart ached with love, guilt, and exhaustion. He whispered her name softly, feeling the weight of 5 years of missed school plays, late-night stories, and the quiet sorrow of a life paused by tragedy. Ryan sat at the small kitchen table, envelope and card before him, trying to steady his racing thoughts. He could hear the rain pattering on the windows, the city muffled by distance and the weight of choices. This was a crossroads. He could continue as he had, living in cycles of exhaustion, never more than enough. Or he could step into a world that terrified him, where wealth, power, and scrutiny awaited, all for a chance to give Chloe a future he could barely imagine. Finally, he looked at the business card, at the name Victoria Lane, and a chill ran through him. Who was she, really? Why him? The answers were unknown, but something in the way she had watched the diner, the quiet intensity of her presence, told him that this was more than coincidence. It was an opportunity, a test, a gamble. And Ryan Thompson, despite everything, knew he could not ignore a chance to protect and lift the daughter he loved above all else. As he folded the envelope carefully, tucking it into his pocket, he made a silent vow. Tomorrow he would go to Lane Industries, not because he expected miracles, not because he trusted the intentions of a billionaire, but because Chloe's future demanded courage he wasn't sure he possessed, and because refusing to try felt like giving up entirely. As the storm subsided and the first gray light of morning crept over Madison Heights, Ryan looked down at Chloe, asleep in her tiny bed. His mind raced with questions and fears, but one truth crystallized: he would face whatever awaited him. Some risks were too important to ignore. Some chances were too rare to refuse. Will Ryan take the step into a world of power and wealth despite the fear of failure and judgment? Or will he retreat to the safety of the life he knows? Yes or no? The next morning, Ryan's hands trembled as he buttoned the only suit he owned, the one from his wedding 7 years ago. The shoulders felt tight, the pants a little short, but it was the best he could do. The city streets of Madison Heights were slick with lingering rain, and the reflection of neon signs on the wet pavement made every puddle look like a small mirror into a world that had always seemed just out of reach. He took a deep breath and walked toward the glass and steel tower of Lane Industries, a building that seemed to scrape the clouds themselves. Inside, the lobby was dazzling, smelling of polished marble, fresh flowers, and the faint hint of designer cologne. The receptionist glanced up, her smile polite but distant. "I'm here to see Victoria Lane," Ryan said, trying to steady the quiver in his voice. The receptionist raised an eyebrow and tapped on her phone. After a long pause, she nodded toward the elevators. 38th floor, left side. Someone will meet you there." The elevator ride was suffocating, each floor that passed making Ryan's chest tighter. He could see himself in the polished walls, an outsider dressed in worn fabric, feeling every ounce of the gap between his life and the one waiting above. When the doors opened, a young assistant in a crisp suit met him immediately. "Mr. Thompson, right this way." They passed offices filled with expensive computers and sleek furniture, conference rooms with views that stretched over the horizon. Ryan's heart pounded in his chest, every step heavier than the last. Victoria Lane's office was massive and minimal, walls of glass that showcased the city like a kingdom beneath her. She stood behind a desk that could have fit his entire apartment, dressed in a charcoal suit, hair pulled back perfectly. Her eyes met his with intensity, sharp but not unkind. "Thank you for coming," she said calmly. "I wasn't sure you would." Ryan sat, still uncertain, gripping the edge of the chair. "With all respect, Miss Lane, why me, and why the note?" His voice came out rougher than he intended. Victoria poured 2 cups of coffee, the rich aroma filling the office. She handed one to him and took the other herself, sitting across from him. "I've been watching," she said. "Not just you, the way you move through life, the way you treat people who are invisible to the world. The truckers, the students, the people struggling to survive. I need someone who sees people, not numbers. Someone who understands dignity." Her words hit him like a wave, sweeping over his defenses. "I'm just a waiter," Ryan said quietly, almost a whisper. "I don't have a degree. I don't have connections. What could I possibly do?" Victoria leaned forward, placing the folder in front of him. "This is not about your resume. It's about what you've lived. You know what it's like to work two jobs, to never have enough, to smile when no one notices. That is exactly what I need. Inside the folder were documents, spreadsheets, photographs, programs for job training, community outreach, educational grants for children, childcare support. Millions of dollars planned, but the value measured in lives changed, not profits. Ryan's mind raced. Could he handle this? Could he take responsibility for families like his own, who struggled in silence? He thought of Chloe, of the letters from her school, the bills he could barely cover. He thought of Anna, her soft voice urging him to give their daughter a life she could not. And despite the fear, he felt a spark of determination. He would do it. He had to try. Victoria studied him silently, as if weighing the decision in real time. You'll have 3 days to think it over. If you accept, you start in 2 weeks. I need someone who will not treat struggling families like cases, but like people, with real needs. And you'll have to make decisions that affect lives. You understand this is not easy, right? Ryan nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. I understand, he said, though the weight of her words pressed down on him. When he left the building, the streets felt colder, the city larger. Rumors would follow. People would speculate about why a billionaire would hire a single dad with no experience. They would whisper about motives, about intentions, about money. Ryan's chest tightened at the thought, but he also knew that for the first time in years, he had a choice. Not just for him, but for Chloe. He could step into the storm, or he could retreat into the familiar struggle of survival. Back at Sunnybrook Diner that night, the air smelled of steam and fried onions, the clatter of plates louder than usual. Marcus, the grizzled cook, eyed him with suspicion. So, you're really doing it? He asked quietly, scraping the grill. You sure you want to get involved with someone like her? Ryan shrugged, a small, tired smile on his face. I'm not doing this for her. I'm doing it for Chloe, for people like us. That's enough reason. After the shift, Ryan walked to Chloe home. She clutched his hand, small and warm in the damp evening, carrying her backpack that was slightly too big for her tiny frame. Daddy, will you be home for dinner tomorrow? She asked innocently. No, baby, but I'll come home early tonight. We'll have breakfast together in the morning, he lied, as always, to shield her from worry. That night, as Chloe slept, Ryan stared at the folder, rereading the details of the program Victoria had asked him to run. He thought about every family he could help, every child who might get a chance to dream bigger than they thought possible. He thought about the chance to be more than just a survivor of circumstances, to be a man who could impact lives for the better. His heart swelled, mingled with fear, hope, and the unshakable responsibility he carried. He knew that once he said yes, there would be no turning back. As the storm outside softened into a drizzle, Ryan held the folder tightly. Tomorrow he would make the call. Tomorrow he would step into a world he had never imagined, where his courage and compassion could shape more than just his own life. He looked at the sleeping Chloe, her face serene, unaware of the battles ahead, and whispered to himself, I'll do this for you, baby. I promise. Do you think Ryan has the strength and courage to take on this challenge and step into a world so far from everything he knows? Yes or no? The following weeks tested Ryan in ways he had never imagined. Walking into Lane Industries for the first day of his new role felt like stepping into another world. The lobby, gleaming with marble and glass, the staff whispering and glancing at him with skeptical eyes, made him feel exposed, like a man out of place in a life that had never been meant for him. Some called him the diner dad, others whispered about the billionaire who had chosen a stranger. Ryan ignored them, gripping the folder of the Second Chances initiative tightly and reminding himself that his focus was not the gossip. It was the families depending on him. Victoria Lane was relentless but fair. She expected excellence, commitment, and above all, integrity. She never sugarcoated the challenges. The program demanded building partnerships with nonprofit organizations, creating educational grants, coordinating job training, and ensuring childcare support. Ryan spent late nights reviewing spreadsheets, interviewing families, and learning systems he had never encountered. He struggled, stumbled, and sometimes doubted himself. But each story of a family in need, each child like Chloe, kept him moving forward. The first family he helped was Rachel, a single mother of 2 working double shifts at a grocery store. Through the program, she secured a medical billing certification course and found a hospital job, doubling her income within months. Marcus, the old cook from Sunnybrook, came to him seeking a chance to improve his life, and Ryan arranged for him to enroll in a culinary program, giving him skills and mentorship he had never imagined. Slowly, the program grew. Families flourished, children learned, and a ripple of hope spread through the community. Even as the initiative gained success, challenges arose. Rumors, skepticism from colleagues, and the relentless pace tested Ryan's resolve. Some days he felt like giving up, the weight of responsibility pressing down, but he reminded himself of Chloe, waiting at home, and Anna's final words urging him to give their daughter a life she could not. The work was grueling, but it was purposeful. Each success, no matter how small, reinforced the meaning of what he was doing. One evening after a particularly long day, Ryan returned to Sunnybrook Diner for his weekly shift. The familiar smells, the chatter of regulars, and the hum of life grounded him. He smiled at Joe, who recounted yet another improbable trucking story, nodded to Jenny, still saving for cosmetology school, and noticed Maya leaving a generous tip for her friend. When he cleaned the corner booth, he found a folded note, left exactly 6 months after the first encounter with Victoria. It read, "You're doing great, keep going, VL." Alongside it was a $100 bill. Ryan felt a warmth in his chest, not from the money, but from the validation of kindness passing from one person to another, from strangers to families to communities, a cycle he was now a part of. At home, Chloe's laughter filled the small apartment as she pulled out her science book, the same one Victoria had given her months ago. She looked up at her father with wide eyes. "Daddy, we're helping other kids too?" she asked. Ryan nodded, tears threatening his vision. "Yes, baby, just like someone once helped us." He held her close, understanding fully now that success was not measured in dollars, but in dignity restored, hope returned, and lives changed. Weeks turned into months, and the program's impact was undeniable. Families found stability, children excelled in school, and those who once felt invisible discovered a voice. Ryan balanced his work at Lane Industries with time at Sunnybrook Diner, never forgetting where he came from. Chloe grew surrounded by love, understanding, and the tangible proof that kindness, when acted upon, could move mountains. One rainy evening, as Ryan locked up the diner and walked to his car, he reflected on the journey. The envelope, the note, Victoria's challenge. It had all led him here, to a life that demanded courage, compassion, and sacrifice, but also offered profound meaning. He realized that true wealth was not inherited or earned through status, but cultivated through actions that uplifted others, and that the courage to try, despite fear and doubt, could change not just one life, but countless others. As he tucked Chloe into bed that night, her small hand clutching his, he whispered, "We did it, baby. We're enough. And now we can help others be enough too." She smiled in her sleep, trusting, hopeful, and unaware of how much her father had fought, yet fully living the lessons of love and resilience he had modeled for her. Ryan sat by the window for a long moment, listening to the rain softly patter against the glass, feeling a sense of completion and purpose he had never known. The story of Ryan Thompson, the diner father turned community leader, became one of a quiet inspiration. It was a reminder that kindness could ripple endlessly, that courage could defy circumstance, and that the smallest acts of compassion often seeded the largest transformations. His life, once constrained by loss and fear, had expanded into a world where love, empathy, and humanity created a legacy far richer than any fortune could buy. Do you believe that one person's kindness and courage can truly create a ripple that changes the lives of many? Yes or no? If this story touched your heart, share your thoughts in the comments, tell us which country you're watching from, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell to catch the next story.